So I want to get to our panel discussion today, be moderated by my colleague Kat here, and we will be discussing the whole pyramid, the wide influence of digital in all areas of fundraising. Kat, take it away.
Thanks, Sean. The benefit of coming to these conferences is you get to learn more about your colleagues and, of course, the nonprofit organizations that we all serve here. And, I didn't realize Sean had such a affinity towards penguins. Truthfully, I thought it was cuttlefish. So that's always fun to learn about. But focusing in on our panel today. Different format today than yesterday's panel. So how this came to be is we've been chatting, and a lot of questions came out of our chat. So we're going to kind of go through the questions that we were chatting about and delve into that a bit more, speaker by speaker. And then, of course, we would love to hear your questions as well. So I have those in front of me, so feel free to submit those as they come to mind, and we will chat about them as it makes sense to the slides and all that fun stuff. So really, the whole story of this, the whole donor pyramid and how this came to be, is that this conference has really been about personalization data and how you can move and use those to create campaigns to when campaigns for your actual work there. So, sorry about that. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves and give us a general overview of what you do at your organizations and agencies, and then we'll take it away with the questions that we've come out of with our chats.
Sure. I'm Mike Johnston, a founder and CEO at HJC, and background, I was born a direct mail fundraiser back in 1987, so don't hold that against me. And then I'd say 94, 95, started to look at the role of digital in at the beginning, a direct response sense. How do traditional channels combine with new ones? And on that journey over the last few decades, have just ended up in a place where we try to help organizations combine the change management challenges of both digital and traditional ways of doing business, of really finding the right messaging and channel combinations to deepen relationships, and then mastering the technologies to help those first two things. So I am an omnivorous person. I think everything is interconnected, and just love helping organizations do that. And that's why we've got this title, The Whole Pyramid, and why I'm excited. So I'll pass it over.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Claire. I work at Care2. What Care2 does is we work with nonprofits and charities to basically do lead acquisition. We find new supporters and new donors for your organization in a consent-based way. We run a campaign. We bring in new supporters who have the same values as your organization and help you grow your lists. So that's what I do at Care2. And in my other life, I teach digital fundraising and digital marketing for nonprofits and charities at George Brown College. And that's an online course, by the way, so it's available to everyone to participate. I think the next term is coming up for the summer. And in my other life, I do professional tarot card readings, only for charity, though. So I do charity events. So if you're happening to, come back to sort of the gala season, or you're doing like young leadership type events at your organization, and you want a free tarot card reader who, trust me, will spooky it up for you if you need it to happen, all the proceeds from that go to charity.
Thanks, Claire. You're a hard act to follow. Seriously. So I'm Jay. I'm the president and founder of the Aber Group. We are many things, but primarily a direct response digital media agency. So we're great at search, paid media, all kinds of different ways of fundraising, connecting with your donors. Our agency has a mix of not-for-profits, arts, education, and still some for-profit clients. So we have a really good view on how the whole paid digital advertising ecosystem is evolving. And I have other lives as well, but we can jump over to the start of this presentation.
Great. So what do we mean by the whole pyramid?
So I put up this stay in your lane because we've heard this for a long, long time around digital. So if you're talking to major gift fundraisers, middle donor fundraisers, people who run the annual campaign in traditional channels, in other areas of mission delivery, they often tell digital, stay in your lane. But over the last 15 years, and especially the last 2 or 3, that's just not the right perspective. And so I just wanted to dig a little more. We're not staying in our lane. We shouldn't. We're not gonna. And we'll have this conversation today of the increasingly important role all over an organization for digital. So I'm just glad there's this group up here because digital plays this role around point of entry. And so for Jay, living that every day, right? How do you find first-time donors? How do you bring in people from lead generation, right? And care too. So suddenly all of these traditional ways of acquiring donors have possibly become too expensive. Digital is now this primary entry point. And so that's the bottom of the pyramid. That's a part of the conversation today. It's the place where more and more often people make that all-important second gift, that conversion to monthly giving, that increase in lifetime value. And so suddenly you need to be, if you're in digital, a part of that conversation. And digital is also this place where at a lower cost, we can learn more things about someone. And it enters into the CRM, and you leverage tools like engaging networks to be able to have that lifetime journey. And then at the end, no matter the jurisdiction, whether it's the United States, whether it's Canada, non-giving, like lead generation, becomes this absolutely important place to begin to convert people at a cost-affordable way and enter into the donor base. So, oh my gosh, suddenly the whole darn pyramid is connected to digital, and we want to have that healthy conversation in these different places today. Thanks.
Yeah, so when you're looking at this holistically, and as you mentioned, and it's interconnected, where do you start and where do you find, the human power to make all of these things happen? Claire?
Well, you can see up on the screen, this is the Digital Outlook report. So this is about to be launched soon, and you'll all hear about it. You can download it. It's a survey of nonprofit professionals in terms of their attitudes towards digital marketing, digital fundraising, internally, skill sets, and basically how they're doing employment and hiring. One thing that I think that it doesn't get addressed a lot, we do quite a lot of these great surveys, and a lot of the information in them you might instinctively already know. Like you might know, 50% of people feel that they're not confident in how they're tracking their Facebook ad spend. Or you might feel that you're not doing as well in email marketing as, say, some of the other orgs that you admire are, right? So that's going to sort of resonate with you. But one thing I think that we don't talk about enough is how we advocate for people who are doing digital fundraising and digital marketing, even if that's not our job. So those of us who are like managers, those of us who are in the C-suite or are talking to donors and the board, really need to make it clear that the number one most important thing is equitable pay. So especially if you live in Toronto, this is an extremely expensive city to live in. In order to have people with the skill set that you need to succeed, equitable and fair pay is really important. And then the next thing that's important for your organization to do is invest in your employees. So allowing these professional development opportunities. The fact that you're all here today is so awesome and so positive. Allowing people to do training, giving them the tools that they need, whether that's the CRMs, the email marketing tools, the data analytics tools that they need to succeed is extremely important. I think sometimes we talk a little bit about values matching, which is really great. We talk about experience working on campaigns and things like that, which is really great, or programmatic stuff, like do they have a background in ornithology, because we're a bird organization, you know, that kind of stuff. But then once they're at the organization, how are we supporting them so that they can always know that we're investing in them to learn more about digital? And if they're not doing the button pushing on, say, Facebook advertising, are we helping support them so that they, when they're working with agencies, they know how to work with an agency, how that they can evaluate how it's going, how they can make it easier for people who are running their ads or doing any of their marketing to succeed as well?
Claire, you make a really great point, and something that's interesting, or at least from my perspective, is when I started working in marketing over a decade ago, maybe that dates me a bit, at People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, you know, there wasn't as many resources out there. You know, you're talking about being a college professor, doing digital marketing courses, and that didn't really exist at that time. And now there's just a flood of information out there. So how would you recommend to hiring managers or just managers in general to kind of sort through all of that and really...
Those of us who are, I totally appreciate what you're saying. Those of us who are on it, we have to do the advocating with internally. We have to make it really clear that everyone having a professional development budget, having opportunities to do conferences online or learn more about their craft, about their profession is really important. And those voices sort of need to work together to make that to happen. And if you happen to have employees that are not interested in learning their craft, then I think y'all know what to do there. I mean, you know, if they just don't want to learn, then I'll have to leave that to HR to handle that one.
And I'd imagine too, it of course backs into the priorities for the organization and, you know, your metrics and your data as far as that, you know, backing in your skills into that and making sure that the skills match what looks like Mike wants to talk about that.
So I wanted to ask about how people have a proactive strategy to find digital people. And I'm going to ask Jay this in a second. So in the reports we've done we've published this 7 times. We've asked people, how proactive are you and what are the strategies that you use? And for best practice organizations, they go find people like Claire, meaning how do you go to higher education institutions that have marketing programs? And then how do you go and present about the nonprofit sector? Because let's be serious. There are massive cadres of digitally trained marketers out in the world. 9 out of 10 don't have a clue that our sector exists. Okay. I think I'm coming in. So are you proactive? And I wanted to ask, for us, it's going and finding programs and educating them about the nonprofit sector and finding the 1 out of 20 who say, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll come and work in that sector in the digital space. So Jay, how do you find people who care about our space?
Ours is a little bit different because we're looking for how do we train great digital marketers. So we're almost one step behind kind of looking exactly for it. We spent a lot of time and energy looking and trying to figure this out. And I strongly recommend that it's not as popular as it used to be. Start with interns. I would say that 90% of our team started as an intern, including our executives.
Yeah.
So I taught at George Brown. I'm on their professional advisory council too. And we spend a lot of time, our executives go and talk to classes, all of it. We're finding the biggest challenge is the balance between people wanting to work remote and people being in their first job. And we were just talking about this. And for us, it's been very, very tough because if you've never worked before, you have to think really carefully about how you're going to bring an intern in and teach them to work. Because they may learn the skills, they may be Google certified, they may understand everything else. They have no idea how to act in a meeting with a client. They have no idea how to address someone in an email if it's not really informal. I know when I grew up and started my career, my boss would take me to meetings, tell me, here's what we're going for. You're the note taker. If you don't understand anything, don't ask me a question during the meeting, but I'll explain it to you in the car on the way back from the meeting. And that's how we all learned. And I think while we're still huge fans of interns, and then promoting people, we are finding challenges at that part. So I kind of suggest you do what our competitors are doing who are staying completely remote. They're just not hiring anyone out of school. They are only looking for people who are proven managers or above, who are happy and don't need that kind of supervision. It's kind of a little bit of a sad statement, I think, on all of it. So we're committed to taking junior people. We're also very open to taking smart people who want a career change. So we have coordinators who are musicians. We have folks from all across. So I think you have to really be careful about what skill are you hiring for. Are you hiring for problem solving? Well, people problem solve in a million jobs. And it's not so much, you can teach digital skills. I feel that you can't teach people the core stuff of empathy and problem solving and caring about what they do. And that's kind of been our philosophy of hiring right now.
Excellent.
Great. So now that you have your team, what's next?
Oh, this is me. I'm going, that's a good slide. I think I'm going to jump right to the end of all these points because I think they all lead to it. I would say that in proposals we've been writing and client conversation, everyone has been asking me, so where do you think this is all going to go? What is the future of digital fundraising? And I think the answer is it's going to have to become even more user-centric. We talked about data at the beginning. If you think about it logically, there is no reason that a charity should treat me, who's been giving to them consistently for 20 years, the same way they're going to treat someone who's 25, who's never given to them before. And we continue as an industry, despite the technology, largely to be one size fits all. Everybody goes to this landing page or that landing page, and we think we're A/B testing, and that's swell. It's better than not A/B testing, but we have the technology. You use it. When you go buy something at Amazon, they will suggest 3 other products that people like you bought when they bought your product. If we're using responsive ads right now in Google, where you upload a dozen different images and copy lines and colors and your logo, and Google decides immediately what the best ad combination is to serve to drive a conversion, it's already doing all those things. So I think we're all on the path to having to figure out and use technologies that we all have to make to adopt the charity to the user's interests. I think you're going to find that maybe 80 to 90% of the content doesn't have to change. Really, your mission doesn't have to change. But if you're talking to someone who's 50 years old versus 20, you probably have a different message. And we have the ability to use the data we have to provide people with the experience they want. You can be the same charity just 12 different ways as long as it's more relevant. So when I looked at some of the other questions, so what's the role of paid search and digital ads? It's to attract people in a way that is meaningful to them. Search is great because it's intent. I want to know more about pangolins, we were talking about earlier. Or a digital ad, if you're talking to someone who's 30, there's people who are 30 in the ad versus someone who isn't. So all these different things, I think, are about going out into the marketplace, adapting your message so that it's relevant to the users.
That's great. And this is something that I chat frequently with clients, is how do you manage this? There's so many different channels. How do you manage the attribution to all of these? And, if you're putting in $50,000 for, all in for all these different channels, how do you attribute it, the success to one particular channel so to invest in that further?
That's a great question, and it is the eternal question. Mm-hmm. For most of our most successful clients, they're going on a premise that if they're digital advertising regularly, everyone who's come through their website at some point has been touched by a digital ad. So we use the client CRM data as the return on ad spend metric. Is this campaign worth it? And then we sit in each of the platforms to make our optimization decisions. At least that way, we're not giving you numbers that are different than what you're saying about how much you fundraised. But we're assuming whatever duplication and noise is in each of the platforms is random and consistent. So therefore, if we're running 12 Facebook ads and one has a return on ad spend in the platform of 300% and one has 3%, we'll kill the 3%. And we're finding that it's a weird concept for most organizations to deal with. But when we talk to them about it, it's probably the best we can do. And how much more money do you want to spend to get your attribution down as tightly as you can, when even that information with cookie deprecation is likely to have holes in it?
Yep, that's a great point. I was going to bring up the cookie deprivation and all that there. So, great.
This is my slide. So, okay.
Yay.
I think this was just meant to sort of talk about the role of interactive content. And one thing that I would love, if anyone is really interested, we just did a big case study at the Nonprofit Technology Conference in Denver a couple weeks ago. And it was with a couple clients of ours. We were talking about basically the power of interactive content. And we tend to see that a lot, whether it's on advertising platforms or you're doing it yourself in terms of how you're engaging with your audience. But we have a platform at CareTube where we were able to put quizzes, polls, surveys, so interactive content as opposed to something you would just look at like a donate now or a sort of click here kind of call to action. Anything that engages with people. And we know that interactive content generates 2 times the conversion than passive content. So industry already knows that. You know, if you've ever gone to the Gap website and they're like, you can get 30% off, but you have to put the coupon, you have to click the button for the coupon. They could give it to you at checkout, but they want you to participate. Or if you're like on Instagram, it's like, take this foundation quiz. We will match your foundation. It's a lie, by the way, but you're still, you know, clicking those buttons trying to match the foundation. Industry knows that's how you can get people to convert. So we wanted to see what would happen if we did that with mission-focused content for charities. So because we've been doing this for 2 years, we have probably 2 million individual engagements to look at the data from, which is in this case study. And what we found is that these types of quiz, polls, engagements boosted donations significantly, more than one point here for people on their list. Folks on their list. It boosted donations by 105%. Wow. Here's the thing, it also boosted reactivation. People who were lapsed or, it's having some battery problems. Thank you. People who were lapsed or inactive on your file. So one of the things I wanted to highlight for folks is that often we think a lot about, this year we got to find more new donors, right? That realm of like, who doesn't know about us that we can bring in as a donor? We all know there's only 3 ways to raise more money, right? More new donations, get the same donor to give more than once, convert them to monthly, right? Or raise the average gift amount. The last 2 are often focusing on your existing community. And sometimes we get so focused in how do I find new people to give that we forget there's a whole community of folks who already love us, your warmest leads. They're opted into your organization, they care about you. They're going to go lapsed or they're going to go inactive if they don't feel that love from you and they don't feel that engagement. So what we found is activities like this, interactive content, was reactivating them to opt back in to hear more from you and then make donations. So the full case study goes into not so much the stats here, but also the psychology of interactive content, which I know that you're an expert in. And what we found over the last years really surprised us. If you're going to do quizzes, polls, donor surveys, or anything like that with your supporters, do not challenge them. Like, make sure you ask them something they already know. The best way to get them to convert is to ask them to answer something really easy that they know the answer for. We have tons of examples like this. Also, don't try to change hearts and minds with interactive content. If you're going out there trying to say, did you know this? And it's like kind of a little bit controversial or out there. It's not as effective as basically mirroring the internal values that your person already has and serving it back to them. So for instance, like an elephant here, we would ask, how many months does the African elephant gestate their baby, right? I think it's 24, I'm not exactly sure. That did so poorly. So we switched up the format and said, did you know the African elephant gestates their baby for 24 months? And then the options were, yes, that is so cool. I knew that. I love elephants. You know, the next one, no, I didn't know that, but I want to know more about elephants, right? And of course, after that, we take them to the charity's actual content about elephants. That did so much better. But when we were testing this, a lot of the organizations, they wanted more of the academic, more of the challenging content. They wanted to educate people using interactive content. And we found it was much better to do the affinity matching, the value matching. Do you agree elephants are good? Got so many click-throughs? You know,
Yes.
elephants are good, right, guys? You know,
Baby elephants.
yeah.
Images there. Always work on.
So
on social.
anyway, if you want the full case study on this with all the quiz examples, you can reach out to me after. But Jay, I know that you do a lot of interactive content.
That's great. And this hits on one of the questions submitted by the audience here. It says, we don't have a lot of additional data on our donors, like age, gender, et cetera. How would you recommend we get this data? Surveys, data overlays. And I think that...
A pen.
Oh, great.
So to pick up on this, and Jay can step in the middle is, and again, Claire's talking about quizzes and surveys. So one in the middle, there's an organization that came out of Australia, It All Counts. They've run quizzes to capture information, and they've done it in 17 countries, 65 organizations. It's a 7-point quiz, and it's unequivocally a way to gather demographic, as well as getting them to give answers to communicate mission and raise the conversion level. So all of those things together. So that model is already out there working. Jay does it every day. So this quiz survey ability, it just works super well. The one thing I wanted to say on the two sides is sometimes it's digital at the top of the funnel and the terrestrial world. So on the right-hand side is something from the Ottawa Humane Society, and they had a first responder sticky that online you could order, give your mailing address, and they would send it out. I mean, I'm not going to give you the exact number, but I'm going to say tens of thousands of these were sent out in 7 weeks, and then they began a multi-channel conversion. And the same on the left-hand side, an organization that could send you some flowers and seed packs as a cost-effective way to get a multi-channel contact and then more effective conversion. So,
my comment on this is be very careful what information you feel you must collect. Mm-hmm. Does it matter to you if someone's a man or a woman? Truthfully? Mm-hmm. So I think what I would consider is varying. To me, it's more important what creative and messaging do these people respond to as I try to move them through my conversion funnel. I would record that information and perhaps use that as a proxy. There's also ways kind of with using Facebook data and other data to approximate certain people's characteristics, which we can talk about at another time. Mm-hmm. But I think it's been kind of an epiphany for our team over the last few years. We're so used to doing things. So in our head, we're going to segment people by demos. And the demos are they're male, female, they're this old, they live on a farm, they live in a city, all that stuff. Which of those data points actually matter to you in terms of raising money and your messaging? You may want to just rethink it, because suddenly all this effort you're spending to find out if someone's male, you should be spending somewhere else, figuring out, can I approach them with a more compelling ask? Can I give them information that's relevant?
That's a great point.
Oh boy. So we're moving up the pyramid. These are 2 digital surveys that we've sent out in the last 4 weeks. So I'm telling you now, the digital world, if you send out surveys to people who believe in who you are and what you do, they will strip naked in a survey and tell you everything about themselves. In the bottom, Children's Overseas Development Org, 7.5% response. 280 people said they'll make a major gift. 60 said they'll make an annuity. 84 want someone to come and visit them, and they want to leave a bequest. 500 people gave their exact salaries, whether they're the top 3 charity, everything. And now the organization is afraid that it doesn't have the capacity to get to everybody and have those conversations. It's the same on the top. This is a rehabilitative hospital in the US, 5.5 response, 149 want to make a major gift. 792 people said everything about their relationship. Now, what you do with that data is up to you. But there's no doubt that digital plays a role in self-identification for you to then have intimate and important conversations to greater giving. You can do, if this was a US conference, I'm going to do data overlays, and I'm going to know that someone owns a yacht and how many children they have and how many grandchildren they have. Well, all you got to do is just ask them and they'll tell you. So that is different, and we're not leveraging that desire to tell an organization who they are and what they do, so we can play in the digital space at a much higher level of the donor pyramid. So,
great, that was a very good point, and it really brings together what the purpose of this panel is this idea that your message and what data you need to get that message out there, and to be really mindful of your supporters and what you need from them in order to accomplish.
And Kat, can I ask people, hands up if you've used a digital survey to uncover larger gifts? Hands up. 4 humans, maybe 5, maybe 6 out of 60, 70 people. So very few. We got to get on it. Got to use it. So.
Yeah. Great. So we're close to closing out the panel here. I just want to throw out, in our last 1 minute and 50 seconds, what you think the future of all of this is, nonprofit marketing and donor stewardship.
I mean, for me, it's, again, picking up on points from everyone, that how do we use digital more intelligently to free up time to have conversations? So whether that's with middle donors, larger donors, so it's just how do we get on the phone? So leverage and use digital in a way that gives us more time, frees up that time for the conversations that people crave because they support the organization. So whatever that means. So for sure.
I'll go and then I'll give you the mic. It's going to sound really funny because I'm the guy who's telling you should be spending more on Facebook and more on Google. I'm going to tell you spend way more money on creative and thinking. Because whether you go to Google, Facebook, any of their data, they're going to tell you that more than 50% of any response is due to the message you're putting in front of people. So I'm not going to embarrass people, but if I said to you, how old's the creative, your evergreen creative that you're running? When was the last time you changed an image? When was the last time you played with a landing page? I can tell you that I just saw yesterday, I think, where we rewrote a very basic, I know who it was for. I shouldn't tell you who it was for. But anyway, we just changed up a couple of Facebook ads, very simple Facebook ads for a client, and the conversion rate doubled. Not that the original ads were bad, they've just been running for way too long with no changes. So yes, you should be spending tons, and preferably with us, on digital advertising and media, but spend way more time on your creative, on your thinking, on your strategy. Because I'll say that for most of you, you ask too much of the media. We're doing a really good job. If I can put your ad in front of someone at the right price, at the right time, with the right target audience, fundamentally, if they give or not, is really up to your whole path to conversion, starting with the creative you show them.
Great.
It came back. It's alive again. I agree. I think in terms of the future of the nonprofit sector, we don't have to worry so much because industry is ahead of us and it's going to show us that path. We're going to steal what Nike and Pepsi are doing, 5 years or 10 years from now. I think what's really important to think about is how we can improve techniques that we know we should be doing right now, like real time. So for most organizations, and we know this, we saw the M&R benchmark report, we're under communicating to our supporters, especially those who are already in our ecosystem, as opposed to sort of like blasting out to new folks. The power of email and SMS, that is one of the easiest fixes you can do this year, is to really improve your communication, improve your segments, like Jay was mentioning, segmenting how you talk to people instead of talking to everyone as the exact same. Into even just donor, non-donor, lapsed monthly, or how they were acquired. Are these the elephant people? Are these the greenbelt people, and building that relationship using tools you already have, using time and expertise you already have on staff. We definitely have to fight the perception that people don't want to hear from us and don't want to communicate with us. That is an outdated perception, not backed up by any research or even by donor surveys. They tell us how much they want us to talk to them. So I think that we need to be doing that. A quick story, I talked to a client in America, they're not in this room, and we were sort of talking about their journey, their stewardship journey, their donor journey, and I said, okay, so this is what you're sending to donors. What are you sending to your monthly donors? And they said, oh, no, we never talk to them. We don't want to remind them that they're giving.
Oh, boy.
But that attitude, it's still, as all the fundraisers are laughing, like, oh, no, But imagine you went into that organization, it was your day one, that person's no longer there. Imagine you're like, okay, now we're going to start talking to our monthly donor to really think about how I build a relationship with them. Imagine what your numbers are going to look like this time next year, right?
That's
easy fixes.
That's a great point. And sadly, we need to end our panel here. But feel free to chat with the panelists here after the session here. So thank you so much for joining us.